The crystal champagne flute shattered against the marble floor, sending shards across Jasmine Brooks' worn sneakers. She didn't flinch. She'd learned long ago that showing fear only made people like Charlotte Vanderberg crueler. "Clean it up," Charlotte sneered, her diamond-studded heel grinding a piece of glass into powder. "That's what your kind is good for, isn't it?" The ballroom of the Vanderberg mansion fell silent. 50 of Manhattan's elite stopped mid-conversation, their eyes turning toward the humiliation unfolding in the center of the room. Jasmine's hands trembled as she knelt, her black uniform dress riding up slightly as she reached for the larger shards. "Careful," Charlotte laughed, her voice carrying across the room. "We wouldn't want you bleeding on the Italian marble. Do you have any idea how much this floor costs? More than your entire neighborhood, I'd imagine." Jasmine's jaw clenched. She'd been working 3 jobs for 2 years to keep her secret safe, to keep her daughter Maya hidden from the world that would judge them both. She couldn't afford to lose this catering gig, no matter how much Charlotte enjoyed degrading her. Then the air in the room changed. The massive double doors opened and everyone froze. Not the polite pause of society gossip, but the genuine paralysis of prey sensing a predator. Dominic Salvatore entered like he owned not just the room but the entire city, and in many ways he did. His tailored black suit probably cost more than Jasmine's annual rent. The white shirt underneath was unbuttoned, just enough to reveal a glimpse of the artistic tattoo snaking up his neck. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his beard immaculately groomed, and his presence was so commanding that Charlotte's cruel laughter died in her throat. But it was his eyes that made Jasmine's breath catch. Dark, intelligent, and currently locked on her kneeling form with an intensity that made her skin prickle with awareness. "Who?" Dominic's voice was quiet, but it cut through the silence like a blade. "Is going to explain to me why this woman is bleeding?" Jasmine looked down. A thin line of red traced across her palm where she'd gripped a shard too tightly. She hadn't even felt it. If you want to discover how this moment of humiliation transforms into something that will shake the entire city, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Every view helps bring more stories like this one to life. 3 hours earlier, Jasmine had been in her tiny Bronx apartment, helping her 5-year-old daughter Maya pick out a book for kindergarten. "Mama, when can I meet my daddy?" Maya asked, her innocent brown eyes looking up from the picture book. Jasmine's heart clenched. "Baby, I told you, Daddy doesn't know about you yet." Why not? How could she explain to a 5-year-old that her father was one of the most powerful and dangerous men in New York? That Jasmine had been a terrified college student, working as a cocktail waitress when Dominic Salvatore had walked into that bar 6 years ago? That their one night together had been the most intense, passionate, and terrifying experience of her life? That when she discovered she was pregnant 2 months later, she'd also discovered who he really was? Not just a wealthy businessman, but the head of the Salvatore crime family. A man whose enemies would pay millions to get their hands on his child. So she'd disappeared. Dropped out of college, changed her phone number, and buried herself in the poorest parts of the city, where men like Dominic Salvatore never looked. "Someday, baby," Jasmine whispered, kissing Maya's forehead. "Someday, I'll tell him. I promise." Her phone buzzed. The catering company needed an extra server for a last-minute event at the Vanderberg mansion. Triple pay. Jasmine couldn't refuse, even though working in Manhattan always felt like playing Russian roulette. The city was Dominic's kingdom, and she was always one coincidence away from him discovering the truth. She dropped Maya at her neighbor, Mrs. Chen's apartment, and took 3 buses to the Upper East Side. The Vanderberg mansion was obscene in its luxury. Jasmine had grown up in foster care, bouncing between homes that barely had heat. Now, she walked through rooms where single paintings cost more than most people's houses. "You're late," the head caterer snapped. "Grab a tray and start circulating, and for God's sake, don't speak unless spoken to. These people don't like to be reminded the help has voices." Jasmine swallowed her pride and picked up a tray of champagne flutes. The party was for Charlotte Vanderberg's 25th birthday. The heiress held court in the center of the ballroom, surrounded by admirers in designer gowns and custom suits. Charlotte was beautiful in the way of people who'd never known hardship, perfect blonde hair, flawless skin, and a smile that never quite reached her cold blue eyes. More champagne, Charlotte demanded, not even looking at Jasmine. Jasmine stepped forward with her tray. Charlotte took a glass, then deliberately let it slip from her fingers. The crystal shattered against the floor. "Oh, how clumsy of me," Charlotte said, her voice dripping with false concern. "Clean it up." Jasmine set down her tray and knelt, aware of the eyes watching her. This was a test. Charlotte was known for tormenting the staff at her parties. It was sport for her. "You know," Charlotte continued loud enough for nearby guests to hear, "I don't understand why catering companies keep hiring people who clearly aren't suited for refined environments. Look at her. She doesn't even know how to clean properly." Jasmine's hands shook as she picked up the glass shards. She thought of Maya, of the bills piling up, of the life she was desperately trying to build. "Did you even finish high school?" Charlotte asked. "Or were you too busy?" "That's enough." The voice came from the doorway, low, authoritative, and laced with danger. Dominic Salvatore stood there, and the entire atmosphere shifted. Jasmine's heart stopped. She kept her head down, praying he wouldn't look too closely, wouldn't recognize her from that night 6 years ago. She'd changed since then. Exhaustion and struggle had aged her, hardened her. "Mr. Salvatore," Charlotte's voice transformed into something breathy and flirtatious. "What a surprise. I didn't know you were coming." "I wasn't invited," Dominic said coolly, walking into the room. "Your father and I had business to discuss. I didn't realize I'd be interrupting, whatever this is." His eyes swept over the scene. Charlotte standing tall, Jasmine kneeling in broken glass, the blood on her palm. Something dark crossed his features. "Who is going to explain to me," he said quietly, "why this woman is bleeding?" The room held its breath. Charlotte laughed nervously. "It's nothing really. Just a small accident. The help can be so clumsy." "The help," Dominic interrupted, his voice dropping to a lethal softness, "has a name, doesn't she?" He was standing directly in front of Jasmine now. She could see his expensive Italian leather shoes, could smell his cologne, the same scent that haunted her memories. "Look at me," he commanded. Jasmine had no choice. Slowly she raised her head. Their eyes met. For a moment nothing existed but that connection. His eyes widened slightly. Recognition, shock, and something else flickering across his face. He knew. After 6 years, after all her efforts to disappear, Dominic Salvatore knew exactly who she was. "Jasmine," he breathed, and her name on his lips sent shivers down her spine. "Jasmine Brooks." The next 3 seconds felt like hours. Dominic's hand extended toward her, and Jasmine's mind raced with panic. He was going to grab her, demand answers about why she'd disappeared, maybe even hurt her for running. Instead, he gently took her bleeding hand in his, examining the cut with a focus that made her breath catch. "This needs to be cleaned and bandaged," he said, his thumb brushing carefully around the wound. The touch was tender, protective, nothing like the dangerous man she'd expected. "Where's the first aid kit?" "Mr. Salvatore," Charlotte interjected, her voice sharp with jealousy. "Surely you don't need to concern yourself with—" The look Dominic gave her could have frozen hell. "I asked," he said, each word precise and controlled, "where the first aid kit is." A terrified staff member scurried off to find one. Dominic helped Jasmine to her feet, his hand on her elbow steady and warm. This close, she could see the changes in him too. 6 years ago he'd been dangerous but younger, less refined. Now there were lines around his eyes that spoke of stress and sleepless nights. The tattoo on his neck was new, an intricate design that disappeared under his collar. "Come," he said, guiding her toward a side room. It wasn't a request. Jasmine glanced back at the ballroom. Charlotte's face was twisted with rage, and Jasmine knew she'd just made a powerful enemy. But Dominic's grip was firm, and she found herself being led into a private study lined with books and expensive artwork. He closed the door behind them. The silence was deafening. 6 years, Dominic finally said, his back still to her. 6 years, Jasmine, and you never thought to call, to explain, to tell me you were alive. I didn't think you'd remember me, she whispered. It was one night. He turned, and the intensity in his eyes stole her breath. One night? he repeated, his voice rough. One night that I spent 2 years trying to find you after. One night that made me question everything I knew about myself. You think I forgot you? Jasmine's hands trembled. You looked for me. I had my people search every bar in the city, Dominic said, stepping closer. Every college campus, every lead went nowhere. You disappeared like a ghost. I had to, Jasmine said, her voice breaking. Do you know what you are? Who you are? I was 20 years old and terrified. I couldn't what? His hand cupped her face with surprising gentleness. Couldn't trust me. Couldn't give me a chance to explain that not everything you hear about me is true. A staff member knocked timidly, handing in the first aid kit before disappearing. Dominic guided Jasmine to a leather chair and knelt in front of her, this powerful, dangerous man on his knees, carefully cleaning her wound with an expertise that suggested he'd treated injuries before. You're good at this, Jasmine murmured. I've had practice, he said darkly, then softer. Why did you run, Jasmine? Tell me the truth. She wanted to. God, she wanted to tell him everything. About Maya, about the fear that had consumed her, about watching their daughter grow up knowing her father could never be part of her life. But before she could speak, the door burst open. Charlotte stood there, her face flushed with anger and alcohol. How dare you abandon my party for some common— Get out, Dominic said, not even looking up from bandaging Jasmine's hand. Excuse me. I said— Dominic stood, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Get out, and if I ever hear you speak to Jasmine or any other staff member, the way you did tonight, your father's business relationship with my family will be the least of your concerns. Charlotte paled. Whatever power she held in her social circle meant nothing compared to Dominic's influence. She fled, slamming the door behind her. Dominic turned back to Jasmine, his expression softening immediately. Come work for me, he said abruptly. What? I own several legitimate businesses. Restaurants, hotels, a catering company. I can offer you a position that pays better than whatever you're cobbling together now. You'd never have to deal with people like Charlotte again. Jasmine's heart raced. Working for him meant being close to him, and being close to him meant he'd eventually discover Maya. I can't, she whispered. Why not? Because— Her phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen. Maya has a fever. She's asking for you. Dominic noticed her panic. What's wrong? I have to go, Jasmine said, standing abruptly. I'm sorry, I have to— I'll drive you, Dominic said immediately. No, I mean no thank you. I can take the bus. At this hour, through that neighborhood? He shook his head. I'm not letting you take 3 buses while you're injured and upset, Jasmine. My car is outside. She wanted to argue, but Maya's fever scared her more than Dominic discovering the truth. Okay, she whispered. Okay. The drive to the Bronx was surreal. Dominic's black SUV, followed by 2 more vehicles with his security, moved through the city like a royal procession. Inside, soft leather seats and climate control made it easy to forget the world outside. Where are we going? Dominic asked. Jasmine gave him the address, watching his expression carefully. This was a neighborhood he probably only knew from crime statistics, if at all. You live here? He asked, concern evident in his voice. It's affordable, she said defensively. It's dangerous. I manage. When they pulled up to her building, Dominic's security team immediately flanked the vehicle, eyes scanning for threats. Jasmine felt a hysterical laugh building. Her biggest threat wasn't the neighborhood. It was the man sitting next to her, who was about to discover he had a daughter. Thank you for the ride, Jasmine said quickly, reaching for the door. Dominic's hand caught her wrist. Jasmine, wait. Can I see you again? Can we really talk about what happened? I don't think that's a good idea. Why? Because of who I am? Because you're scared? Because— A small face appeared in the 3rd floor window. Maya pressed against the glass, looking down at the street, looking directly at the car where her mother sat. Dominic followed Jasmine's gaze and saw the little girl. His brow furrowed. Someone waiting for you? My neighbor's daughter, Jasmine lied desperately. I should— Maya waved, and Jasmine's heart sank. The little girl had her features, the same warm brown eyes, the same dimple in her left cheek, But she had something else too. Dominic's jawline, his dark hair, his intense, intelligent gaze. Jasmine watched Dominic's face as he stared at Maya, watched the confusion shift to calculation, then to dawning realization. His grip on her wrist tightened. "How old is she?" he asked, his voice deadly quiet. Jasmine couldn't breathe. "Jasmine," he said, turning to face her. "How old is that little girl?" "5," Jasmine whispered. "She just turned 5. The silence in the car was suffocating. Dominic's expression was unreadable, his hand still gripping her wrist, not painfully but firmly enough that she couldn't pull away. "Let me go," Jasmine said, her voice shaking. "Please. Is she mine?" The question hung in the air between them. Jasmine could lie. She'd been lying for 5 years. But looking into Dominic's eyes, seeing the raw vulnerability beneath the dangerous exterior, she couldn't do it anymore. "Yes," she breathed. "Her name is Maya." Dominic released her wrist and pressed his palms against his eyes, his breathing harsh and uneven. For a moment, he looked nothing like the feared Mafia boss, just a man processing information that had just shattered his entire world. 5 years, he said hoarsely. "I have a daughter, and I've missed 5 years of her life." "I'm sorry," Jasmine said, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, but I was terrified. You have to understand." "Understand what?" Dominic's voice rose, raw with emotion. "That you thought so little of me that you believed I'd be a danger to my own child? That you'd rather raise her in poverty than give me a chance?" "You kill people," Jasmine shouted back. "Your enemies would use her against you. She'd be a target her entire life. What kind of mother would I be if I exposed her to that?" Dominic flinched like she'd slapped him. "You think I don't know that?" he said quietly. "You think I haven't thought about it every day for years? About how my life makes it impossible to have a family, to be normal? But she exists, Jasmine. She's real, and she's mine." A knock on the window made them both jump. Mrs. Chen stood there holding a bundled-up Maya, the little girl's face flushed with fever. Jasmine bolted from the car, taking Maya in her arms. "Baby, what are you doing out here?" "Wanted to see the pretty cars," Maya mumbled against her shoulder. "And the man." Dominic had exited the vehicle and now stood frozen, staring at his daughter with an expression of such pure longing that it broke Jasmine's heart. "Hi," Maya said, peeking at him over Jasmine's shoulder. "Are you Mama's friend?" Dominic's voice was rough when he spoke. "I'd like to be." "He has nice cars," Maya told Jasmine seriously. "Can he come upstairs?" "No, baby, he can't." "Yes," Dominic said. "If your mother allows it, I'd very much like to come upstairs." Jasmine wanted to refuse, but Maya was burning up, and she needed to get her inside and medicated. Having Dominic in her tiny apartment felt dangerous, like inviting a wolf into a rabbit hutch. But the way he looked at Maya with such naked hope and fear made it impossible to say no. Just for a few minutes, Jasmine conceded. Her apartment was exactly what she'd feared showing him. Cramped, worn, with furniture from thrift stores and toys scattered across the floor. But it was clean, and it was filled with love. Every wall had Maya's artwork, every shelf had books they'd read together. Dominic's security stayed in the hallway, though Jasmine could see them through the door's peephole, standing guard like they were protecting Fort Knox instead of a one-bedroom in the Bronx. She laid Maya on the couch and went to get the thermometer and children's fever medication. When she returned, Dominic was kneeling beside the couch, speaking softly to Maya. "Does it hurt?" he asked, his large hand gently brushing hair from her forehead. "My throat," Maya whispered. "And my head. I get headaches too sometimes," Dominic said. "When I was your age, my mama used to sing to me. Do you like when your mama sings?" "She has the prettiest voice," Maya said. "She sings me to sleep every night." Jasmine's hands shook as she administered the medicine. Watching Dominic interact with their daughter, seeing him so gentle, so careful, was destroying every defense she'd built around her heart. "Can you stay until I fall asleep?" Maya asked Dominic. He looked to Jasmine for permission. She nodded, unable to speak. Dominic settled into the worn armchair beside the couch, while Jasmine sat on the floor holding Maya's hand. Within minutes, the medication began working, and Maya's eyes grew heavy. "Mama," she murmured sleepily. Is he the one? Jasmine's heart stopped. The one what, baby? The one who gave you me, Maya said, her words slurring with exhaustion. You said someday I'd meet him. Is he my daddy? Jasmine looked at Dominic. His eyes were wet, his jaw clenched with emotion. Yes, baby, Jasmine whispered. Yes, he is. Good, Maya breathed, her eyes closing. I like him. He has kind eyes. The moment Maya fell asleep, Dominic stood abruptly and walked to the window, his shoulders shaking. Jasmine realized he was crying, silently, desperately trying to control himself. Dominic, she said softly, approaching him. She's perfect, he choked out. She's absolutely perfect, and I've missed everything. Her first word, her first step, 5 birthdays. I'm sorry, Jasmine said, tears falling freely now. I thought I was protecting her, protecting both of you, but maybe I was just a coward. Dominic turned and pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. No, you were scared, and you did what you thought was right, but things are different now. He pulled back, his hands cupping her face. I'm different now. I've spent the last 3 years building legitimate businesses, distancing myself from the violent parts of the family operation. I'm not the same man I was 6 years ago, Jasmine. I can protect you both now. I can give Maya everything. She doesn't need everything, Jasmine said. She just needs a father. Dominic finished. She needs a father who shows up, who protects her, who loves her. Let me be that, please. Before Jasmine could respond, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. She answered, and a cold female voice filled her ear. Jasmine Brooks, this is Charlotte Vanderberg. We need to talk about the little secret you've been keeping from Dominic Salvatore, and about how much it would be worth to certain people who'd like to get their hands on his daughter. The phone clattered from Jasmine's hand. Dominic's expression transformed instantly from vulnerable to lethal. He picked up the phone, listened to Charlotte's smug laughter, and his voice became ice. Charlotte, this is Dominic. If you breathe a word of what you think you know, your family won't have a business by morning. In fact, they won't have a family by morning. Do you understand me? He ended the call and immediately made another. Marco, I need a full security team at this address in 10 minutes, and I need every phone record, every conversation, every person Charlotte Vanderberg has contacted in the last 3 hours. Nobody learns about my daughter, nobody. He turned to Jasmine, his expression softening. Pack a bag for you and Maya. You're coming with me. I can't just leave. Yes, you can. Charlotte has already proven herself dangerous. I'm not leaving either of you vulnerable. Where would we even go? My penthouse. It's secure, defended, and has an entire floor you can have to yourselves if you want space. But I'm not negotiating on this, Jasmine. Someone just threatened our daughter. The time for keeping distance is over. Dominic's penthouse was a fortress disguised as luxury. The top 3 floors of a Manhattan high-rise, with bulletproof windows, biometric security, and guards stationed at every entrance. Jasmine felt like she'd stepped into a completely different world. Maya, recovered from her fever, was in awe. Mama, this place is like a castle. The guest suite Dominic showed them to was larger than their entire apartment. A master bedroom with an ensuite bathroom, a separate bedroom for Maya decorated in soft purples and pinks, and a sitting room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. How did you have a room ready for a child? Jasmine asked suspiciously. Dominic looked almost embarrassed. I may have been optimistic. After I saw Maya in the window, before I even knew she was mine, I had my assistant prepare this, just in case. That admission made Jasmine's heart clench. Over the next 3 days, they fell into an unexpected rhythm. Dominic had to work. Even mob bosses had conference calls and meetings, but he arranged his schedule around Maya's. He ate breakfast with them, read Maya bedtime stories, and spent every free moment getting to know his daughter. Jasmine watched him transform. The dangerous edge never fully disappeared, but with Maya, he became someone softer. He learned to braid her hair badly, helped her build elaborate block towers, and listened with genuine interest to her kindergarten stories. But the threat from Charlotte hadn't disappeared. Dominic's security team had discovered she'd made contact with the Russo family. rivals who'd been trying to find a weakness in Dominic's armor for years. On the fourth night, Dominic called Jasmine to his office after Maya went to sleep. "We need to talk," he said, his expression grave. The office was all dark wood and leather, a wall of windows behind his massive desk. Jasmine sat across from him, feeling like she was being called to the principal's office. "Charlotte made a mistake," Dominic began. "She approached the Russos directly, trying to sell them information about Maya. But what she didn't know is that I have people inside their organization, people who are loyal to me." "What does that mean?" "It means I have evidence of Charlotte's attempted extortion, her contact with known criminals, and her plans to kidnap Maya and ransom her back to me." Jasmine's blood ran cold. "She was going to kidnap our daughter?" "She was planning to," Dominic corrected. "She won't be planning anything anymore." "What did you do?" Dominic's eyes were hard. "What I had to. Charlotte Vanderberg is currently being questioned by federal investigators about her family's involvement in several illegal activities. Activities that my people just happened to discover evidence of. She'll be too busy saving herself to think about Maya. You destroyed her entire family. I protected ours." The possessiveness in his voice should have scared her. Instead, it made her feel safe in a way she'd never experienced. "Jasmine," Dominic said, standing and coming around the desk, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest." He knelt in front of her chair, taking her hands in his. "6 years ago, we had one night together. One incredible, intense night that I never forgot. But I need to know, was it just one night for you? Or was there more to it?" Jasmine's breath caught. "What are you asking?" "I'm asking if you felt it too. The connection, the sense that everything changed in those few hours." She couldn't lie to him anymore. "Yes, I felt it. That's why I ran. Because I knew if I stayed, I'd fall completely, and falling for someone like you felt like jumping off a cliff. And now," Dominic's thumb brushed across her knuckles, "now that you know me better, now that you've seen me with Maya, now I'm terrified," Jasmine whispered, "because I'm already falling, and I don't know how to protect my heart." Dominic stood, pulling her up with him. "Maybe you don't need to protect it. Maybe you need to trust that I'll guard it as fiercely as I guard everything else I love." His hand cupped her face, and Jasmine's eyes fluttered closed. "Tell me to stop," Dominic murmured, his breath warm against her lips. "Tell me this is too fast, that you need more time." Instead, Jasmine surged up and kissed him. It was like falling through time, back to that night 6 years ago when the world had disappeared and only they existed. But it was also completely new, deepened by the knowledge of who they were now, by the daughter sleeping down the hall, by the life they could potentially build. Dominic kissed her like she was precious and fragile, but also like he'd been starving for her. His hands tangled in her hair, pulling her closer, and Jasmine melted into him. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dominic pressed his forehead against hers. "Stay," he breathed. "Not just for protection, not just for Maya. Stay because you want to be here, because you want this, us, as much as I do." "It's complicated," Jasmine said. "Everything worth having is complicated." Before she could respond, an alarm blared through the penthouse. Dominic's entire demeanor changed instantly. He pushed Jasmine behind him, one hand going to the gun she now realized he kept holstered under his jacket. "Stay here," he commanded, already moving toward the door. But Jasmine's maternal instinct overrode everything else. "Maya!" She ran past him, down the hall toward the guest suite. Dominic cursed and followed, barking orders into the phone to his security team. Jasmine burst into Maya's room and found it empty. The window was open, curtains billowing in the night breeze, and on the bed was a note in elegant handwriting. "The Russos send their regards. If you want your daughter back, come alone to the warehouse on Pier 47. You have 1 hour." Dominic read the note over Jasmine's shoulder, and she felt him go utterly still, the kind of stillness that preceded violence. "No," Jasmine whispered, her legs giving out. "No, no, no!" Dominic caught her, holding her tight. "Listen to me, listen. We're going to get her back. I promise you, Jasmine. I will get our daughter back." His phone was already out, rapid-fire commands being issued. I want every available man at Pier 47 in 15 minutes. Full tactical gear. Marco, call the Russo family. Tell them if Maya has so much as a scratch, I'm burning their entire organization to the ground, starting with their children. You can't. Jasmine grabbed his arm. The note said come alone. If you bring your men, they're not going to hurt her, Dominic said with absolute certainty. She's only valuable to them alive and unharmed. This is about leverage, not revenge. You don't know that. Dominic gripped her shoulders, forcing her to meet his eyes. Yes, I do. Because I know how these men think. I know what they want. And what they want is me, making a desperate mistake. They want me to come alone and unarmed so they can take us both. He pulled out a second phone, one Jasmine hadn't seen before, and made another call. It's Salvatore. I need a favor from the Bureau. Jasmine's eyes widened. The FBI. I have contacts everywhere, Dominic said shortly. Then into the phone, Pier 47 Russo family kidnapping of a minor. I need agents there in 20 minutes, but they need to stay back until my signal. This is personal, but I want legal charges ready. He ended the call and turned to Jasmine. Get dressed, something dark and easy to move in. I'm coming with you. You think I could stop you? Dominic's smile was grim. Besides, if something goes wrong, I want you where I can protect you, not here, going out of your mind with worry. 10 minutes later, Jasmine was in a bulletproof vest, being briefed by Marco, Dominic's head of security, on how to stay safe during the extraction. The boss is going in first, Marco explained. We'll have snipers positioned on every building with sight lines to the warehouse. The moment we see Maya, we take the shot at anyone threatening her. You're going to kill them? Jasmine asked faintly. Marco's expression was matter-of-fact. Anyone who hurts a child doesn't deserve to breathe. Boss's orders. The drive to Pier 47 was the longest 20 minutes of Jasmine's life. Dominic held her hand the entire way, his jaw set with determination. I need you to know something, he said as they approached the warehouse district. If this goes wrong, if something happens to me, don't, Jasmine interrupted. Don't you dare. Maya's safety is everything, Dominic continued. Marco has instructions. He'll get you both somewhere safe, somewhere my enemies can't reach. He has access to accounts that will keep you comfortable for life. I don't want your money, I want you alive. Dominic's hand tightened on hers. Then let me do what I do best. Let me protect what's mine. The warehouse was exactly what Jasmine expected from movies. Dark, abandoned, perfect for clandestine operations. Dominic's SUV pulled up to the main entrance, headlights cutting through the darkness. Remember, Dominic told her, stay in the vehicle until Marco gives you the all-clear. Promise me. I promise. But the moment Dominic stepped out of the SUV, Jasmine heard it, a small, terrified voice crying, Daddy! Maya. All rational thought fled. Jasmine bolted from the vehicle before Marco could stop her, running toward that precious voice. Jasmine, no! Dominic shouted, but she was already through the warehouse door. The interior was dimly lit by industrial lights. In the center, tied to a chair, was Maya. She was crying but appeared unharmed. And standing behind her, with a gun pressed to the back of the chair, was a man in an expensive suit who Jasmine assumed was a Russo. How touching, the man sneered. The whole family together. Dominic appeared beside Jasmine, his gun drawn but pointed at the ground. Let her go, Antonio. This is between us. Antonio Russo smiled coldly. Is it? Because from where I stand, you suddenly have a very exploitable weakness. A beautiful daughter who... The sound of safeties clicking off echoed through the warehouse. Red laser dots appeared on Antonio's chest, his arms, his forehead. As I was saying, Dominic continued conversationally, though his eyes were lethal. Let my daughter go, now. You think you can shoot me before I shoot her? I think, Dominic said, taking a step forward, that you're a smart businessman, Antonio, and smart businessmen know when they're outplayed. My men have your entire crew surrounded. The FBI is waiting outside to arrest anyone who walks out of here without my permission, and my finger is getting very tired on this trigger. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Maya, brave little Maya, did something that changed everything. She looked up at Antonio and said in a clear, steady voice, My daddy's going to save me, and you're going to be very sorry." The absolute confidence in her tone made Antonio hesitate, just for a second. That second was all Dominic needed. He moved faster than Jasmine thought possible, closing the distance and disarming Antonio in 2 fluid movements. The gun clattered to the ground, and suddenly Dominic had Antonio by the throat, pressed against a support pillar. "You put your hands on my daughter," Dominic said, each word measured and terrifying. "You made her cry. You made her mother suffer. Give me one reason I shouldn't end you right now." "Dominic," Jasmine said softly, and he looked at her. "Maya's watching." That penetrated. Dominic's expression shifted, and instead of violence he simply stepped back and gestured to his men. "Take him. Let the FBI have him. I want him in prison," thinking every day about how he lost to a 5-year-old girl. As Antonio was dragged away, Dominic rushed to Maya, untying her with shaking hands. The moment she was free, Maya threw her arms around his neck. "I knew you'd come," she sobbed. "I knew my daddy would save me." Dominic held her like she was made of glass and diamonds, his face pressed into her hair. "Always, baby girl, always." Jasmine joined them, wrapping her arms around both of them, and they stood there in that warehouse, a family forged in fire and fear, but bound by something unbreakable. 2 years later, Jasmine stood in the kitchen of the penthouse, their home now, watching Dominic help 7-year-old Maya with her homework at the dining table. If Johnny has 5 apples and gives 2 to his sister, Dominic read seriously. "How many apples does Johnny have left?" 3, Maya said confidently. "But Johnny should have shared equally. That's what you taught me." "Your daughter, the negotiator," Jasmine laughed, bringing over plates of dinner. "Our daughter," Dominic corrected, pulling Jasmine down for a quick kiss. "And she gets that from her mother." Life had changed in ways Jasmine never imagined. Dominic had fully transitioned his business interests to legitimate enterprises. He still had power, still had influence, but he wielded it differently now, protecting instead of threatening, building instead of destroying. Charlotte Vanderberg was serving 5 years for attempted kidnapping and conspiracy. The Russo family had fallen apart after Antonio's arrest, their organization dismantled by both federal prosecutors and Dominic's strategic interventions. And Jasmine. Jasmine had discovered she was good at business. Dominic had put her in charge of his catering company, and she'd tripled its revenue in 18 months. She'd gone back to school, finished her degree, and was now a partner in the business. But the best change was the simplest one. They were a family. "Mama," Maya said, "can we call Grandma Rosa before bed? I want to tell her about my art project." Rosa Salvatore, Dominic's mother, had taken to her granddaughter with fierce Italian love. She'd also taken to Jasmine, treating her like the daughter she'd never had. "Of course, baby. After dinner, after homework, after the call to Grandma Rosa," Jasmine and Dominic tucked Maya into bed. "Tell me the story," Maya requested, as she did every night. "The story of how Mama and Daddy met?" Dominic asked, settling onto the edge of her bed. "Yes, the one where Mama was brave and Daddy was mysterious." Dominic glanced at Jasmine, who smiled and took his hand. Together, they told their daughter the fairy tale version of their story, leaving out the danger and fear, focusing on the magic. The moment their eyes met across a crowded room, the immediate connection, the separation and reunion. "And then," Maya prompted when they reached the end, "what happened?" "Then," Jasmine said softly, "we learned that sometimes the scariest thing, falling in love, is also the best thing, because love makes us brave enough to face anything, even bad guys trying to hurt us." "Especially bad guys," Dominic confirmed, "because when you love someone, you become stronger than you ever thought possible." Maya yawned, satisfied with the ending she'd heard 100 times but never tired of. "I love you, Daddy. I love you, Mama." "We love you too, sweetheart," they said in unison. Outside Maya's room, Dominic pulled Jasmine close, his arms wrapped around her waist. "Any regrets?" he asked quietly. Jasmine thought about everything they'd been through, the fear, the danger, the uncertainty, but she also thought about the mornings waking up next to him, The sound of Maya calling them both to see something amazing, the way Dominic's face softened every time he looked at his girls. "Not a single one," she breathed. Dominic kissed her, slow and deep and full of promise. "Good, because I plan to spend the rest of my life making sure you never do." And as Jasmine melted into his embrace, she realized that sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is also the thing that saves you. Sometimes the man everyone else fears is the one who guards your heart most carefully. Sometimes love doesn't make sense on paper, doesn't follow the rules, doesn't look like what you expected. But it's real, it's fierce, and it's forever. This story has reached its end. If it touched your heart in any way, leave your like and share it with someone who also enjoys emotional stories. New stories are coming soon. Until next time.